Hey guys, it's Joe here with the next installment of our defense series. Absolutely delighted today to be joined by Lonnie, founder and CEO of McBride. Lonnie, thanks so much for coming over all the way from the US.
Thank you.
Yeah, so first of all, it'd be great for you to just kind of give us a little bit of information about who you are personally, the journey you've been on with McBride over the last few years.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I'm Lonnie McBride. I am as you said, the founder and CEO of McBride, which also includes McBride International, which, as you're aware, we work closely, IO and McBride International on various accounts, including NATO. I founded the firm McBride US 10 and a half years ago. And my background leading up to founding the firm was very similar, and largely defense contracting. I had worked at Deloitte for many years and KPMG for a couple of years and a couple other spots in defense. So great experience there that inspired me to do this on my own. And then prior to my life as a defense contractor, I was in the military on active duty for many years with the United States Air Force and Air Force Reserves. So I really feel like my life, my professional career, and my organization is really an extension of my military days. We're so involved in defense, so it's been great. So it's been turning chapters that feel very similar to the previous ones while being very different.
Yeah, and that move from McBride US into kind of where you are now, and going from that sort of heavy defense experience in the US and bringing that over to NATO, what's that been like?
Wow, that's been quite a journey. So previous to 2020, I had very little exposure to NATO, except for on one deployment when I was on active duty. But other than that, really didn't know much about it. I was fortunate to one of my colleagues, Dan Obermeyer, who some of you in your organization have worked with, great guy. He had worked at NATO and convinced me to come over and try to generate some business. And here we are 6.5 years later with a nice book of business and growing. But in these 6.5 years, it's been quite a learning experience, understanding the alliance, the 32 members of the alliance. Each one, are passionate about the defense of their country, and collectively, doing the best they can for NATO. And so the way they create their defense posture is similar but different than how the U.S. does it. So there's been a lot of learning, both technically and also just culturally as an organization. So it's been great. It's expanded my horizons as a professional, and it's certainly done that for my colleagues. And I also think, for our newcomers that join the account, I just think it's so fascinating to them, and they quickly get engaged. The work is interesting. Obviously, it's very serious because there's the bad guys in the world that we're trying to help, defend against. But the work is fascinating. So.
Yeah, and in terms of kind of, yeah, you sort of touched on it there, and obviously we'll go into a bit of detail around this and some context around kind of where we are today, and particularly your role and the business role. But coming straight over here from the Hague, and
Yeah.
the meetings that you've been having over the last few days, and it's clearly no secret to most people that it's quite an important time at the moment with the current climate in the world, and NATO in particular. So I think it'd be really useful now to just kind of go on to that piece of what does that look like now for you, and kind of going over a bit of the kind of what's ahead in the next year or two.
Sure. So essentially what's going on with NATO is it's obviously NATO's designed to defend the alliance, right? Everyone's aware of the term attack one, attack all. So, and they take that very seriously. And what does that mean? In God forbid, that article, that specifically applies, to that attack one, attack all approach, has only been invoked once, and it's been invoked on 9/11.
Yeah.
So it wasn't invoked prior to that. From my understanding, it hasn't been invoked since. But and again, hopefully that's never invoked. But we have to prepare for that as an alliance, and we, not just the government staff of NATO, but the contractors like McBride and McBride's partners like IO. We all work together to strengthen the defense. Historically, defense meant making sure we had enough bullets, tanks, aircrafts, sea vessels, etc. Right? That was the old way, very focused on kinetic warfare. That will still persist in the future, but there's other elements that now represent defense. And those elements, some very much impact what what McBride is doing, my organization and our strategic partners like IL. For example, technology transformation. So strengthening, enhancing cybersecurity, implementing and excelling at artificial intelligence, drone technology, the adoption and the expansion of drone technology, both from the actual drone itself and the software, and applying artificial intelligence where it makes sense. Those things now are very much are also at the point of the spear with the tanks and the aircraft, which is great, but also creates a new challenge for industry. So we have to find the right talent that have the defense or related experience, to support that point of the spear, right? And it's not always easy, as firsthand. Again, our organizations work closely together, but we're getting there,
Yeah.
and it's exciting. So I love what once was a support function. Technology is now no longer a support function. It's very much at the point of the spear as part of the defense. And I think that's great because I think it's going to be needed. Unfortunately, from a civil, from a personal standpoint, and but that's what we've got to do, and we're up for the challenge.
And I think, that's all very kind of telling of where the world is now. I think say warfare isn't just something that's fought on battlefields anymore. It's things that happen in everyday life. It's cybersecurity attacks. It's anything that could happen that might not necessarily even be directly related to military. It could be finance, it could be CNI, it could be anything. And I think it's what would be quite interesting, based on some of the conversations that you've been having sort of very recently. This is all great, but all of this comes at a cost, right? And what's that going to look like from a kind of spend perspective?
Yep.
Are they willing? Are they going to put the money where the mouth is?
I'm glad you brought that up. So the answer to that is yes. So historically, it was 2% of GDP was required of each member alliance to put towards NATO. For the most part, that has been adhered to, and that is equal to $1.5 trillion. Think about that. That's massive, right? $1.5 trillion. That has moved as of a year ago, roughly. The nations agreed to increase that to 5% in the coming years. So we're looking at, well north of $3 trillion. That's just, it's just mind-boggling numbers. But that number isn't some arbitrary number. That number is what the alliance believes is required to successfully defend its representative nations. And a lot of that spend will be related to technology. The wars in Ukraine and the most recent one with Iran, I think, have fully demonstrated the importance of cybersecurity experts, artificial intelligence experts, drone operators, right? Which is someone that has often a very, technical background because it's done remotely. So the spend has been significant in the past, but what we're going to see is mind blowing. And so, but it creates opportunities for industry to further support the alliance. But that also means industry has to adapt.
Yeah.
Right. Industry has to make additional investments in their infrastructure and in their staff in order to meet that demand. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it for my organization and for my strategic partners like IO.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting with a kind of such a complex organization in terms of what that actually looks like for the 32 nations. Is that kind of targeted across every nation? Is that something that the organization wants that's going to come from different places?
So that is so basically the way it breaks down is so that's 5% of GDP. And so each member, so all 32 nations are required to do that. And 3.5, and I'll have to look at the breakdown again. So excuse me if my, the categorization of the spending is a little off, but I believe 3.5% will be towards things that we see.
Yeah.
the tanks, the bullets, the surface area missiles, and the technology aspect. The 1.5% has more of a civilian readiness, defense readiness flair to it. That's infrastructure, and infrastructure comes in two forms. That's things that are tangible, that we can touch, right? So improved data centers. There's going to be more data centers needed by the civilian societies, within the respective nations. And then there's things that we can't, that aren't tangible, like the more cybersecurity experts within the different private organizations, and more artificial intelligence experts. And why? Well, since the war in Ukraine, it's been made clear that the future wars, God forbid there are one, but if there are, the civilian, they're going to be directly impacted. Kyiv's a great example. You're going to, not only will there be possible destruction of infrastructure, but also cyber attacks. That's a great example. That's not just directly affecting the Ukrainian military. It's also affecting the Ukrainian cybersecurity experts that are civilians. And you can, and I suspect that's happening currently with the conflict in Iran, right, with its neighboring, with the neighboring countries. So we all, whether you're in uniform or in civilian attire, we all will have a role to play in the defense of our nations, whether we want to or not. And that's why the 5% number, that's why it's 5% of GDP, and that's why the breakdown is what it is. It's a different thinking historically, but the thinking aligns to the realities of our world. So again, unfortunate, but we have to ready ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's that change in landscape, and I think they're even talking about space warfare as well now, right? Like that's they're all fighting for satellites, they're all fighting for space as it were. So it is all changing, and I think I'd be interested to get your view. It's easy for me to say as someone kind of very much an outsider looking in, but I would probably say that I think there needs to be a change of approach from the organizations involved at the customer, essentially, for want of a better word, in terms of how they approach resourcing, in terms of how they approach procurement of these resources. What's your kind of take on that, and are those conversations happening already?
So that's a great question and not an easy one to answer. So the way procurement has been done historically, let's look at the way it's been done and what I think it's going to look like related to the mission, to the NATO mission. So, and particularly the 5% spend. So historically, it's been these large RFQs for just an arbitrary number, 15 F-35s.
Yeah.
Right, which are very popular within the alliance. The UK Ministry of Defense has a number of F-35s. We're one of the first to receive the F-35s. So you would see these orders come out, and they would, my God, I don't know how many years it would take to procure that equipment, and it would come in waves. Okay, those things will continue, but in parallel, you will see a lot of procurement activity around technology and streamlining of that procurement, because we cannot wait years for advanced software to support the development of artificial intelligence, which is needed in warfare. Okay, so you're going to see more volume, shorter timelines, and greater demand on industry. So instead of working on one massive RFP as an organization, you're going to be working on half a dozen in parallel, across AI, cyber, drone technology, et cetera. So again, this goes back to what I said earlier. The investment in your team, both personnel and technology, has to increase in order to meet the demands of your customer, in this case, NATO. And you'll find too that procurement will get, as part of the streamlining, they will start to use artificial intelligence to advance things, because you'll find that they'll get to the ask faster in the RFQ than they did historically because of the use of artificial intelligence. Before, you'd go through 14 volumes, Yeah, and like, what are they asking for? This is not completely clear. Now it's less volumes, less pages per volumes, and really getting to what they need and when they need it, and the specifications.
And in terms of, the customer themselves, the NATO organizations, are they starting to open their eyes more to different ways of doing things and different ways of approaching bringing these people in?
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yes, so there's thinking around a lot of there's different areas of this, but I want to focus on one key area. And this area that McBride has some experience in is Diana. So Diana is part of the NATO that focuses on emerging technology and working with industry to advance that emerging technology to help the warfighter in defense of the nations. So that's not necessarily working with traditional defense contractors. That's working with from very small startups with a great idea, helping them, take that from ideation into reality, and engaging members of Silicon Valley, and other areas of the world that have concentration of talent. Also, and certainly they're going to work with some of the major defense players for some of the larger weapons. But it's great to see that it's an organization within NATO that kind of has a startup feel to it, engaging startups to be more technologically driven, to better the defense. So I think that's the right answer. It's going to take time though, because again, the organization's used to procuring things in a similar fashion the U.S. has with the tanks and planes, and there's nothing wrong with that. That was the right way of doing things. Now we're just having to evolve, but on a pretty intense timeline because of these unfortunate threats in the world.
Yeah, it's not evolution for evolution's sake at the moment. It's very much a need as opposed to a want. And
Yes.
I think certainly that is a great point, and something that the MOD are getting better at doing here in the UK, and really having a push for. The problem the UK have had has never been not having capability. It's been not having capability in the defense area. There's so many amazing businesses here in the UK, and I'm sure it's the same in Europe and the US as well, that have been doing these things for years and have great expertise, but defense are not tapping into it. And like you say, these things like Diana that are set up specifically to go, you've got this great technology, you've got this great skill set. How can we utilize that in defense? Because then you've got a solution already. You're not building a new solution. You're just making it fit for purpose in the defense context.
Exactly.
And I think, that's what we need to do at pace to enable us to, to keep up with like you say, the enemy, essentially, because it's something that they are very good at, is, taking ideas and making them happen fast. So that's great. And I guess, as a sort of, as a closing point, really, in terms of where you see this progression happening and how you see it happening over the next couple of years, what first and foremost, what do you think the goal is? And, secondly, what do you think are the main challenges that can be faced, and how do we overcome them?
So the goal is, the ultimate goal is to enhance defense, right? To advance our abilities in kinetic warfare, and advance our abilities in the other areas of warfare. And let's kind of focus on the other areas. So this is what we were just speaking about, like finding advanced technology, helping that technology grow through investment and talent. And a great example would be artificial intelligence, right? When you turn on the TV, every other thing is about artificial intelligence. Some good, some not so good. But it's clear it's going to be needed in warfare. It's already being used in warfare, and that usage is going to grow. But looking at, let's just say, Silicon Valley and what they're doing there, engaging that young talent that's creating this incredible artificial intelligence, and finding novel ways to use it in defense and make a significant impact. And so you're bringing this great young talent that has been providing so much to the private sector now, and you're leveraging that in our defense through the alliance to come up with just mind-blowing technology I mean, that's what's needed, that young, bright, energetic talent, to help our civil societies, keep the bad guys away. And so you're going to see a lot more of that activities, a lot more of those activities in pools throughout NATO and in the respective MODs. And so I think it's wonderful. And how does industry play a role specifically? Is if you've got a great idea and you think it can be furthered in the defense of the 32 nations, right? The alliance, is engaging with Diana. There's plenty of ways into Diana, just, engaging them, presenting your idea. And if it's something that they agree upon, they'll certainly work with you to try to incorporate that into the defense. And I'm excited to see what comes out of that, because I'm from the school of kinetic warfare. I'm used to the planes and tanks and aircraft carriers. To be able to see things that are not necessarily tangible, like software, AI used in warfare to better defense, that's pretty cool. And I have a lot to learn from it. And my team and our strategic partners like IO, I think it's going to create a lot of demand in our business. And so we need to do as much as we can in terms of investment and resources, both personnel and technology, to be able to engage our clients successfully. So it's exciting times. It's unfortunate what's driving these exciting times, but we're here for the challenge, and I'm confident that we're going to do great things for the alliance. We already are. We have quite a bit of concentration at the alliance doing multiple frameworks, but that's growing rapidly. And again, having a partner like IO, and they've got great personnel helping us with transformation, to include Diana. So IO is a strong partner of ours in that Diana relationship.
Yeah, and I think it's very much, as a sort of a closing statement for myself, it's very much a kind of, watch this space when it comes to yourself and the business with McBride, because in what has been a relatively small time in terms of the international context, where you've already got to, and the numbers that we've been discussing, and the numbers that you've discussed with NATO, I think it's it's definitely a very exciting time. So kind of really glad so far to where we've got to, but also really excited to see what comes up over the next sort of 12, 18 months plus. And yeah, thanks so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
It's been really great to meet you finally in person. And yeah, I look forward to continuing to work together.
Yep, same.